how do I get better at sales and sales presentations? Sales is a conversation. Do not let anybody else tell you anything else. Yes, if you're running an e-commerce business and you are selling off a page, you haven't got to get involved. It's a different strategy altogether. But most certainly, if you're selling a service or you have to speak to people in order for there to be an exchange of money, then it is going to be down to a conversation. And with it being a conversation, that means it has to be two-way. You know, I've had people ask me for a one-to-one. We've done the one-to-one. Well, they did the one-to-one because they did all the talking. And at the end of it, they then said, oh, what do you think of my product service that I've just spent the last 10 minutes speaking about? And generally, I say, not interested. And the reason for that, they haven't made me part of the discussion. You know, so tip number one, I suppose, is don't talk at people. You know, invite them to share what they know about the product or service. Ask them questions to uncover their knowledge, where their gaps are, where their pain points are. You know, you've got to make it about them. You know, if you take the time out to make an appointment with someone to take out their time, you really need to make it about them because time is precious. So, you know, really focus on that. Something else that you can do to get better at sales and sales presentations, do your research. Do your research before reaching out. Or if you've got the appointment, do your research before you speak to them. One thing that I do, well, I don't actually, okay, so I do a marketing overview, a sales overview with a lot of business owners. And I purposely don't do my research. And the reason I don't do it is because I want them to see me looking at their product with a fresh set of eyes without any preconceived ideas. Obviously, if I was going to pitch them something, then I'd have done the research before. But you know, at the initial kind of overview stage, we're just going to have a conversation. We're going to point a few things out to them. So, but if you are going to have an appointment with somebody that it's already pre-planned, you know you're going to go and see them, do your research. You know, be surprised how surprised people will be if you have done research. It's a classic one when you go for an interview, which I haven't done for many, many years, where they say, oh, what do you know about my company? I mean, you sit there going, you pay a decent wage? That's not research. You know, they're looking for things like, oh, well, we were established since 1842 and we have 4,000 employees and blah, 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 blah. So do your research. Oh, somebody else has joined us. Put your hand up, whoever's joined us. And, you know, if you want to help us answer this question that's appeared in Nigel's man bag, how do I get better at sales and sales presentations? Then feel free. Build rapport. Now, rapport isn't kind of telling jokes. Rapport isn't taking them cakes, as I've known people do. It's about finding common ground. And you can find common ground in anything. You know, I've been to see customers before. We found common ground in the weather because we both agreed it's pants. You know, we found common ground in sport. You know, they might hate the football team that I support, but even that is a bit of rapport. But build that rapport. Never dive straight in for the right. This is my product. It's time for you to buy it. Or this is my service. It's time for you to buy. You know, take a bit of time speaking to that person in front of you. I was saying to somebody yesterday, actually, and it so rings true. Most people that you speak to don't actually have a deep or meaningful conversation from one week to the next. So if you take the time to make it about them, do your research if you need to, and spend some time building rapport, honestly, you're doing better than 90% of the people they've come across that week, because people aren't having those conversations, even with their families. You know, if you're married, your partner said, oh, how's your day at work? Hey, it was all right. That's where it ends. So someone who comes along and digs that little bit deeper and says, yeah, I want to know a lot more about you. Honestly, you open up the floodgates, mate. You really are, because that person will then want to go, build that rapport. Define who the decision maker is. That's another way of getting better at sales, because I don't know how many times you guys have done presentations to who you thought was the person who was going to say yes. and then they've said something like, oh, I've got to speak to the board, obviously in a corporate setting. The classic one I have is I have to speak to the wife or speak to the husband, which I do get. But the reality is your life is your life is your life, and what you change in your life is going to change you, as well as having an added bonus of changing them or helping them. But the reality is, if it's something that you need to do to move forward, that's a decision you need to make. So, define the buyer. If you're speaking to a client, find out, if you're happy with what we go through today and you feel that this can benefit you, are you happy to make a decision today? And they'll either say, yep, no problem, or, oh, I've got to speak to my partner. And that doesn't mean you stop and say, well, bring your partner in, but at least you understand then, okay, there might not be a decision today, but potentially if I make sure that I add some value so that the partner can have a look as well, it may well push it over the line. Sometimes that is a smoke screen though. There's a saying in sales, all buyers are liars. When you sell into the corporate world, that will make a lot of sense. But look, we're all buyers. When you go to buy a high ticket item, the salesman says, right, you ready to buy? You're going to haggle. You're going, oh, that's a bit pricey, that is. We're all liars when we want to be, because we want to get the best deal for ourselves. So, define your buyer. This is give first and sell second. That person in front of you, what can you give them? And it's not about literally giving them a physical item, but what can you give them in terms of knowledge, in terms of reassurance, in terms of trust factors, in terms of understanding before you then go into the sales? The amount of times I used to work for Yellow Pages. I'm sorry, somebody had to work there. Please don't throw tomatoes at the screen. And I would spend probably an hour talking about them, their business, some of the things they could do themselves to get more business to their business. And then for the last half an hour, we'd say, oh, by the way, Yellow Pages. They'd be like, oh, yeah, Yellow. But for me, it was about giving them that extra, that knowledge, which, if they put any of it in place, it would have made a difference. A lot of them didn't put anything in place. But hey, that's another story for another day. What else can you do? Ask questions and listen. Honestly, questions, guys, they're so powerful. And if you think about the questions you're going to ask somebody, and you think about the questions that you can ask somebody which relate to the benefit that your product or service can give them, then you're in a better place. It isn't trickery. This isn't like some sales Jedi Knight thing. This is about you understanding, okay, can I really help this person with what I'm offering? And what I'd say to you is, if you are struggling to think of the kind of questions that you should be asking your prospects, get in touch. Get in touch. We can have a little role play, and maybe go through some of the questions that I feel you could ask to uncover more needs. But the other thing as well is to listen. The amount of times that you'll hear something by listening properly, which will allow you to think on your feet, change what you say, change the delivery of the price, change the whole proposal. You've got to listen. We've all get these phone calls. Beep, beep. Hey, Mr. Nigel, I'm phoning you just 2 minutes. I want to do a quick call about a survey. Right. And then they launch. They don't say, hey, Mr. Nigel, have you got time? Hey, Mr. Nigel, I'm doing a survey. Is that okay? They say, hey, Mr. Nigel, I'm doing a survey. It take no more than 2 minutes. And then they start. And at that point, I'm going to go, because they haven't asked the question. They haven't listened for the response. They've just thought, oh, I've got to get this information out as quickly as possible. And that's the other thing I'll say to you is slow down. I, too, have been guilty of talking fast, being too quick. Pace yourself. By slowing down, it gives you time to think. It gives you time to interpret the information that's coming back to you so that you can then deliver your response in a more eloquent way. So slow down. It's not a race to the end. A sales conversation, a sales presentation shouldn't be, oh God, I've got to get this done in half an hour. If that's the case, then you need to rearrange. But slow down and take the time out. When you deliver the price, shut up. Slow down. You know, I've had students in the past who used to deliver a price and carry on talking. And they wondered why they never got the deal. Because if you say, hey, it's £500, and by the way, it's beautiful weather out there today, I'm going to go to school and my kids are... Guess what? The person you've told that price to, they've forgotten about the price. They're listening to everything else that you're saying. So slow down. Okay, approach them on their level. I'll let you into a secret. When I first started in sales, I was going into public grammar schools, and I was speaking to people who were way above me in terms of intelligence. And I did feel a little bit inferior, you know, being a bald-headed black fella from Oldbury, going in and seeing these bursars at private schools or ex-army and stuff. And I felt really small in their presence. But one of the things that I did with these people is I just used normal language. I didn't try and become something I wasn't. I'm from the black country, mate, and I work for this company. I sell plastic chairs. And they appreciated that. You know, where I didn't try and bring in any beautiful words, which I didn't understand. I just did it on my level, and they appreciated that. And I think for them, seeing this normal guy from kind of like a normal area coming in, because they were, you know, these grammar schools, I mean, parents who are highly educated, not speak like that. When you got me, you're from ready, so you're all right, mate. You want to buy some plastic chairs? They loved it. They loved it. And to be fair, I made some good friends that. Hey, Lyndon, thank you, man. Stop procrastinating and just do it. Yeah, you're right. It is about, if you want to get better at sales, just do it. If you overthink anything, you end up not doing it at all. And I'm testament to that. I don't know if you guys remember the very first video that I did, the very first live I did regarding Nigel's man bag. I actually admitted to you guys that I struggle doing lives. I do struggle doing lives, or I did struggle doing lives. But the fact that now I think it's the fourth week of us doing Nigel's man bag, it is actually now part of a routine for me. It's part of a process for me. The fear that I had 4 weeks ago about doing this, and what will people say? Will people join me? Oh my God. Completely gone. I don't even care. I don't care now. Because I know that if this video is watched by one person, it makes a difference. I've done my job. So approach them on their level. Use simple language. Don't use acronyms. Don't use industry words. I was speaking to somebody the other day who he was pitching a website to somebody, and I said, well, what did he say to me? He said, yeah, I told him we could do JavaScript and Flash and all these other wonderful technological terms that only someone in that world would actually know. And I said, whoa, that's too complicated, that is. You know, not being funny, but the moment you say to me, oh, I do HTML5 and JavaScript, blah, 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 I'm thinking, you know something? I don't understand. But if you say to me, I can help you build a website that will generate you lots of visitors so that you make lots of money, guess what? I get that. I understand that. Approach people at their level. And I suppose, you know, remember you're selling to a person. You know, you're selling to another human being. Treat them like a human, not like a cash machine. Treat them like a human being. If that means sometimes walking away, if that means sometimes saying, you know something, this thing I'm offering, this deal I'm offering isn't right for this person, live your life like that. You know, I've turned away countless business owners who their prices weren't right. They can't afford, if you're selling something for £10, you can't afford to work with me. And, you know, it's not being arrogant. It's just that you can't afford to work with me, because for you to get your money back, you've got to do a hell of a lot of sales, especially. And if you're not doing any sales at the moment, you know, yeah, I'm good, but I ain't Moses. If you're selling a product of £100 plus, £50 plus, then there's something we can do about that. But £10, no good. But, you know, you're selling to a person, treat them like that. If you feel that something's not right for them, don't give it to them. You know, it's not about getting the sale at all costs. It's about doing as much good as you can in the world. That's how I've always lived my life when it comes to sales. And I'm sure that some of you will appreciate that and be the same. So that is it. How to get better at sales. and sales presentations. We're going to quickly reiterate. So make it about them. Do your research before reaching out. Build rapport first. Define your buyer. Contribute first and sell second. Ask questions and listen. Approach them on their level. Remember, you're selling to a person. And as Lyndon Allen Gray said, stop procrastinating and just do it. Just do it.